スト翻訳始まるよ。皆さんこんにちは、花です。今日、メダリスト第7話を見ています。遅れてごめんなさい。お待ちいただきありがとうございます。先週の質問は、私の最初アニメは何だったと思いますか？答えは、ユリアナイスです。先週の質問は、コメントにあります。見てくれてありがとうございました。グッドボタンとチャンネル登録よろしくお願いします。アメリカでフィギュアスケーターが強い地域ってあるんでしょうか？日本だとアニメの舞台にもなっている名古屋シングルのフィギュアスケート選手が強いんでしょうです。And when I translated it, they were asking, is there a particularly strong region in the United States where a lot of skaters compete out of? So in Japan, it seems that Nagoya is a very common place for really well-known skaters to train. So in America, are there places where that happens too? And absolutely, there are three-ish regions in America, and there of course are exceptions to this. Sometimes skaters will come out of very random places and do very well. However, there are three where it's like, okay, these are our world champions, these are our Olympians, these are our national champions. Number one is, in the case of figure skating, we have like Boston, New York, New Jersey. This is where we have Isabella Vito, who is our current reigning world silver medalist and a national champion. And we have a lot of young and up-and-coming skaters in Boston and New Jersey and that sort of thing. A lot of the skaters that are competing on the international circuit are based out of that area. Another area that's super common is Colorado Springs. Now, Colorado Springs is actually where U.S. figure skating is headquartered, so this is where Amber Glenn skates, who is our reigning two-time U.S. national champion and the reigning Grand Prix final champion, one of the favorites to win worlds here in a couple of months. We also have some pair skaters from there, and it's just like really well known. A lot of people will travel to Colorado Springs to do altitude training because it's way above sea level and it helps with your stamina. And there are a lot of really well-known coaches there that constantly train Olympians. The final most common region for figure skating is actually Los Angeles. Los Angeles is where I started. I lived in that area when I first started skating, and I literally skated at the rink that Sasha Cohen, the 2006 Olympic silver medalist and 2006 national champion, trained at. She also won the bronze at Worlds that year. That was the rink she trained at. I literally started at the rink that a Olympic medalist trained at. That is also where Nathan Chen trained when he was competitive. And of course, Nathan Chen is our reigning Olympic champion. It's where Ashley Wagner trained, who is my favorite skater. She is a three-time U.S. national champion and the 2016 world silver medalist. It's where Adam Rippon skated, who was the 2016 national champion. And LA, Los Angeles, is kind of known as just being the super hot spot for figure skaters to get their start. While it used to be the number one, I think it kind of shares that with Colorado Springs and like Boston, New Jersey area, but it still is well known as being a really big spot to train. And like I said, there are other areas where good skaters come from, but most commonly you see our top skaters that are winning medals at Worlds and the Olympics from those three areas. Oh. Shouting it for everyone to hear. I think everyone did. Such a good opening. Level 1 badge test. Let's go. Mm. 8 points. Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, testing for or practicing for a test and a competition at the same time. It's hard. Yay! So, Sometimes when you land a jump for the first time, especially once you start getting into like axel and double jumps, you can land it once for the first time and it's definitely cause for celebration. It's very exciting, but sometimes a skater will land it for the first time, but it doesn't become consistently landed for a while, so it'll take a while before you can like show it off and put it in a competitive program because jumps are difficult to get consistent. You have to just land it over and over and over and over again. And when you usually get to that point where you can finally land it the first time, it takes a while to get there because your body isn't used to that feeling yet. Up until then, it's only been used to falling or whatever. For me, when I was a skater, I couldn't rotate it fully and I would come down on both feet. That was the way I couldn't land jumps. And then I usually would start to find one foot and then fall and fall and fall and fall and fall. And then eventually I would finally be able to land it, but then it would become a inconsistent jump. So for her in her situation, she landed it once, which is a great moment. You now know you can do it. However, it usually takes at least a couple of days or a couple of weeks, depending on how talented the skater is. In the case for Inori, she's gotten through all of the other jumps very quickly. In fact, we didn't even get to see it. We didn't get to see her land a single axel, which usually is the first one that takes quite a while. So I would assume I'm just going to say that she's very, very talented in that fact. And because of that, it might just take her a few days before it becomes super consistent. Usually you don't want to put a jump in a competitive program until you're landing it 9 times out of 10 in practice. When you're competing, you're more nervous, your legs are shakier, so you're less likely to land a jump than you are in practice. So you want to make sure that it's like very consistent in practice before it goes in a competitive program. It's very common. Don't feel bad, Inori. It's very common to land it once and then still struggle to land it after that. Oh, we've all been there, Inori. It's like, I landed it, I promise. It's almost always when the coach isn't around, too, that you land it the first time. He believes you. Using the iPad to pause and watch back what you did is a very common coaching technique. Ouch. Okay. All right, you gotta... It's okay. And that happens a lot in practice. Okay, I'm going to be pausing probably more than usual today now that I've gotten the feedback to pause more. But in the case of when you're practicing something, there is a time where you just got to stop and move on. And that's hard to do as a skater because especially if you landed it when your coach wasn't around and now you're struggling to show it to them. You're like, I swear I did it. I'm not lying. But you eventually have to find a place where you need to stop. You need to move on. Maybe come back to it later because the more frustrated you get, usually the more likely you are to start messing with your technique. And then you start getting into the habit of doing the wrong technique because you're annoyed. So you have to know when to stop. And in Inori's case, I think right now, because she's just getting more and more off on her technique, she needs to probably pause, come back to it later maybe. Be okay with you landed it once. It's going to take a little while to be able to keep landing it. I could have just kept going another second. Tsukasa was listening to me. You're your own worst critic in this sport. Yep, you can't rush through things. Yep. Mm-hmm. What? It's not a competition, Tsukasa. Mm-hmm. Nani? New character? Oh, dang. Yeah. She looks even younger. I was gonna say, this is now like a ritual for her to make her feel better. Huh? Mm. Oh. It was like opposites. So it seems like it's a little bit easier than what she's competing with. She doing it. So it almost looked like a double because I'm gonna get really picky here. So when she was jumping, her arms were all the way in here and her legs were like fully crossed. And you don't do that in a single jump. You stay very open in a single jump, especially a single Saukow, because it's practically just a half rotation by the time you're actually leaving the ice. So we're taught even from the very beginning to kind of rotate with our arms up, because that way when you start to learn the double, going like this is going to immediately help you figure out how to rotate an extra rotation because you're more aerodynamic. So rotating like this on a single jump, I've never met a coach that teaches you to rotate like this. This is specifically saved for once you start doing like a single axle. I guess I'm being picky here, but she should be rotating like this because I watched that, and because it's like an anime and it's not in real time, right? It made me think that she just like threw out a double Saukow instead of a single Saukow when she just did a single, if that makes any sense. Singles rotate like this, doubles rotate, and triples and the rest rotate like, well, the best rotation is like this. Most skaters can't do that because it's very difficult. Nathan Chen was one of the only ones who can. We usually rotate somewhere like this. Yeah, it looked like an easy test. Oh. But Tsukasa wants to get better too. That is true. When you start out coaching, it's very hard to teach something you know. It's very different to teach something than to just know something. And not everyone's cut out for it. New friends? You have to be willing to be humble like that when you're new. You don't know how to teach everything. I love Tsukasa. You got very nice axle. Yeah, that's like super rare. What is this episode? There's no magic words. Yeah, it's probably hard for him because he did ice dance. That is so true. Okay, that's super relatable. My entire time coaching skating, I was constantly worried that I was teaching it wrong or that I just like wasn't explaining it well enough. And I never even got to the point where I was teaching skaters double jumps. I usually only coach up to like a single Lutz because I did find once I got them past like a single Lutz and into a single axle, my knowledge of how to explain things was severely lacking, and I was working with my coach to try and help figure out how to coach, but that was around the time that I ended up kind of moving on with life and decided that it was time for me to move on from trying to be a coach. So it's something that goes on in your head a lot when you're first starting out is, am I teaching them the right technique? Am I teaching it to them that is a way where they will actually be able to figure it out themselves? Because there's only so much that I can say. I can't physically like throw them into the air and make them do exactly what I say. They have to be able to understand what I'm saying and put that into action when they do it. So it's very realistic. I'm so relating to Tsukasa right now because the entire time I coach, I was very like, am I telling them this right? Am I doing this right? And it can overwhelm you sometimes because you get so worried that you're going to make a mistake and teach them wrong technique that there's like a whole inner battle going on inside your head the entire time. And it's kind of like being very funnily depicted here where it's like, I'm trying to also get better than my student just through coaching. So I like this. This is very relatable to me on the other side of things as a coach. So I'm enjoying this development of Tsukasa. He seems to be very, I've been saying it, he seems to be very natural at it. Yeah, see, she wanted... That was a double, which is the proper rotation position, but a single sao cow, especially if she's so good at it, she would be rotating like this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She needs to anchor her head. Yeah. Yeah, iStance will do that to you, I bet. Like, if you have a partner that you're constantly trying to keep an eye on and anticipate, you might get better at teaching that because you can anticipate what they're going to do sooner than the average person. Yeah, there is something behind those words. I love this development of Tsukasa as a coach. Mm-hmm. You have special abilities to be able to anticipate what she's going to do. She's going to land it. Here we go. Yay! I was gonna say, okay. I was like, that was not a double sao cow. That was a double loop, which is way harder. So we're again, okay, we're just jumping ahead again. Double loop is quite a bit harder than a double sao cow. The double sao cow is the first one you learn when you start learning doubles, and then you usually need to learn a double toe loop, and then it's double loop. I kind of talked about this in my breakdown of Hikaru's performance when it came to the difference between a loop combo and a toe loop combo. A double loop is way harder than a double sao cow. So I don't know why we didn't even get the payout of landing a double sao cow. We just jumped ahead to landing a double loop. It's fine. It's just like, I know we don't have a ton of time, and maybe they skipped some stuff in the manga, but it's just yet another like kind of, oh, okay, we were struggling with landing a double sao cow, but now we're just going to perfectly land a double loop. But we never saw the double sao cow get consistent. Like, we gotta work through the jumps. That's my only issue. The show is doing so good at making things super realistic, and then it just does something like that where I'm like, why did we just jump ahead? Like, we were working towards the double sao cow. Why not have us land the double sao cow and then move on to double loop? And maybe this is just an anime cut from the manga, but I'm not mad. I'm just like, I don't know why that's happening. Oh, is it already? We're about to compete? Okay. A lot of coaches do dress up when it's a competition. A lot of them won't until it's like an international competition. If it's just local competitions like this, they don't really dress up that much. I can feel, again, I'm feeling the nerves. I'm just feeling it. Got lots of very, very big personalities, just showing up. Man, we're just meeting all these new characters. They all have their fun personalities. Dang. We're really going through the different kinds of competition emotions with these new skaters. Scared, easily angry, super wild and crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Yep. Let's get some warming up done. Take some deep breaths and get ready. You don't want to lose your skates at a competition. Uh-oh. Oh no. With your skates in it. Oh goodness. Where did you leave your skates? Oh my god. I'm so stressed. I can feel the stress. Oh my god. All right, so that was episode 7 of Medalist. So I really liked how we focused in on Tsukasa as a coach because, again, that's something I can very much relate to. The whole time I coached, I still felt like a new coach the entire time because I was constantly learning new things about how to coach, and it was like my skaters were growing and I wanted to grow with them. So it's very realistic to ask a coach for their expertise when it comes to learning how to coach. In my case, when I was coaching, I was still also competing, so I just went to my coach. So it wasn't as much of a, I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't considered, in this situation, he went to a coach that he had never met before and asked for advice. For me, I just always had someone with a lot of knowledge who had been coaching for a very long time that I could just go to easily to ask for advice. So I was very blessed in that way, but it was because I was still trying to compete at the same time. So I was working with a coach for my own skating while I coached younger skaters. It was a wild time. It was a great time in my life. I really enjoyed that time of my life, even though I was always broke. Literally always broke. But yes, we seem to have jumped ahead again. So if you have been watching the series, you know that I was a little bit frustrated with the fact that we skipped over learning a single axle and we went straight to doubles, and it kind of confused me at where we were in her journey because it's just, yes, Inori is very talented, and yes, that does happen to skaters where the months and months that it takes to land a single axle just doesn't happen to every single skater. It happens to a majority of them. In my case, it took me over a year to land my axle for the first time, and then it took me a couple months to be able to land it consistently. And now we've seemed to skip over getting our double Saukow consistent because at the beginning of the episode, we weren't landing it. We had only landed it once, and then we were trying to show that we could land it, but we couldn't, which is very common. But then we just jumped ahead to loop, and usually there's a little bit of time in between from being able to get your double Saukow landed pretty consistently to being able to land a double loop. So it was more frustrating because we worked on it so much, but we didn't have a payoff of the double Sau. We went straight to double loop, which is just a little bit weird to me. Everything else about this show is amazing. We keep skipping things that are very important to the foundation of someone skating. And yes, Inori is talented. Yes, I understand that. So it's natural that she'll work through things a little bit faster than normal, but being able to land a double loop 4 months into skating is kind of wild and very uncommon. So that's just, again, I love this. I'm loving this show. There's just I'm going to be nitpicky. I'm going to be nitpicky because I'm a figure skater. So I'm going to call out the things that I see that seem to be very strange to me in the timeline of things. So I'm very happy that she's landing a double loop. It is worth more points than a double Saukow. So she's going to throw that into a competition, which we'll probably see next week. I'm interested to see if they're going to do the double loop and how successful it is, and if that's even allowed. Because the other thing is I'm speaking based off of my knowledge of US figure skating levels, which is very different from Japanese ones, and I'm actually having a hard time finding these lower levels for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. Everything I keep looking up takes me directly to novice A and novice B, and then junior to senior. In the United States, we have all kinds of super low levels that are the learn to skate levels, which are, you just test through learn to skate classes and coaches. Once you start having to do actual testing sessions with judges that are testing you, that is the first one is pre-preliminary. So we start with pre-preliminary, and pre-preliminary, when you test it, you really only have to do a single Saukow and a single toe loop and an easy spin. But competitively, they can go all the way up through a single axle, but that's the highest they can do. Pre-preliminary does not have double jumps. After that is preliminary. Preliminary competitively allows you to do a double Saukow and double toe loop and double loop, I believe. If I'm remembering the rules, I don't have the rule book ahead of me, and they change the rules sometimes. But that's preliminary. So to be competitive, you need to at least have a double Saukow and a double toe loop. And then you have pre-juvenile, which pre-juvenile, or pronounced more commonly pre-juvenile. That one, when I was competing, you needed a double Saukow, a double toe loop, and a double loop. I believe now it goes, I'm seeing skaters do double Lutz combos in pre-juve. So again, that's just a change from when I was in that level. Because when I was in that level, I was in pre-juvenile in 2009. So 16 years ago. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's how long ago I was in that level. To be competitive at pre-juve, you need to have double Lutz, double flip. Juvenile is kind of that middle ground. So juvenile, you are allowed to do double axels, and I believe they're allowed to do triples now. Back when I was competing, again, it was just double axel. That was the highest you could do, but I believe they're allowed to do triple sow cow and triple toe loop now. And then after that is intermediate, which goes all the way through triple Lutz now. And then you have novice, which novice is, we don't have novice A and novice B. Novice is just novice, and they are allowed to do triple triples. So they can do like the triple Lutz, triple toe, the triple Lutz, triple loop if they can do it. And then junior is, I think that's where we kind of get similar. Junior is just like you're doing triple triples. In order to be competitive, you need to have triple triples. I believe in the short program, they're not allowed to do a triple axel or higher, but then in the free skate, they're allowed to do triple axels and quads at the junior level. And then senior is, of course, what we see on TV. So triple triples, triple axel, quads sometimes. And that's kind of a breakdown of the levels. I didn't go into extreme detail. If you want me to, let me know. I also will just say I don't have the rule book open in front of me, and the rules do change, and it's been 5 years, 6 years since I competed in single skating, so some of the rules that I just said might have changed and shifted just a little bit, but I do think I've been keeping up with it enough to kind of know exactly what's in it. As far as the Japanese levels, I'm assuming they're level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is kind of similar to our pre-preliminary, preliminary, pre-juve, juve, intermediate. It's just like split up a little bit differently, and obviously in the level that Inori's in, which I thought was more like pre-preliminary here, which is only an axel, it seems like it's more like preliminary, where they're allowed to do double jumps.
それでは今日出てきた英単語を振り返ってみましょう。
Well known.
この単語は有名な、広く知られているという意味を持ちます。人物、場所、ブランド、出来事などが多くの人に知られている場合に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
He is a well-known author in the science fiction genre.
彼は SF ジャンルで有名な作家だ。
That restaurant is well known for its delicious sushi.
そのレストランは美味しい寿司でよく知られている。この動画で出てきた有名な選手たちは、フィギュアをあまり見ない私でもどこかで聞いたことのある人ばかりでした。やっぱり一流の選手はその業界以外でも名前が知られちゃうんでしょうね。
Reigning.
この単語は、現在の王やチャンピオン、リーダーを指す言葉で支配している、現職の、という意味を持ちます。スポーツや政治、王室の文脈でよく使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She is the reigning champion in women's tennis.
彼女は女子テニスの現王者だ。
The reigning king has introduced several new policies.
現国王はいくつかの新しい政策を導入した。今回の動画では、オリンピックや世界選手権の原覇者たちの名前も続々と登場しましたね。やっぱり一流の選手はその業界以外でも名前が知られちゃうんでしょうね。さっきも同じことを言ったって？気のせいですよ。
Headquarter.
この単語は、通常は名詞、ヘッドクォーターズとして使われますが、動詞として使うと何々に本社を置く、または、本部を設置する、という意味になります。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
The company is headquartered in New York.
その会社はニューヨークに本社を置いている。
They decided to headquarter their new branch in Tokyo.
彼らは新しい支社を東京に設置することを決めた。アメリカではコロラドスプリングスにフィギュアスケート協会の本部が設置されているそうですが、日本のスケート連盟の本部は東京にあるみたいですね。やっぱり本部は東京に設置するんやで。
Hotspot.
この単語は観光やナイトライフ、ビジネスなどの人気の場所、注目されているスポットを意味します。また比喩的に問題の多い地域や感染拡大地域を指すこともあります。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
This beach is a hot spot for tourists in the summer.
このビーチは夏の観光客に人気のスポットだ。
The city became a COVID-19 hotspot last year.
その都市は昨年新型コロナの感染拡大地域となった。 アメリカではロサンゼルスなどがフィギュアスケートの聖地なようですが、日本だと名古屋が有名な場所らしいですね。名古屋は何回か行ったことがありますが、ひつまぶしや名古屋コーチンのイメージしかなかったです。
Cause for celebration.
この表現は祝うべき理由やおめでたいこと、を意味し、嬉しい出来事や成功を祝う際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
Winning the championship is definitely a cause for celebration.
優勝は間違いなく祝うべきことだね。
His promotion was a big cause for celebration in the office.
彼の昇進はオフィスでの大きな祝うべき出来事だった。いのりちゃんが2回転ジャンプを成功させたことは喜ばしいことでしたが、その後は安定してジャンプの着氷ができていませんでしたね。いのりちゃんのメダリストへの道はまだまだ遠そうです。
Depend on.
この表現は、何々に頼る、何々に左右される、何々次第であるといった意味を持ちます。人や状況、条件によって結果が変わる場合や、何かに依存していることを表す際に使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
Children depend on their parents for support.
子供は親の支えに頼っている。
Whether we go hiking or not depends on the weather.
ハイキングに行くかどうかは天気次第だ。どんなジャンプが大会でできるかどうかは、選手の能力やレベルにもよるみたいです。やっぱりそういった知識がないと、そんなことまで意識してフィギュアスケートを見ることはないですよね。
Struggle.
この単語は、苦労する、もがく、奮闘することを意味し、困難な状況に立ち向かう際に使われます。物理的な戦いだけでなく、精神的経済的な困難にも適用されます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She struggled to finish her assignment on time.
彼女は期限内に課題を終わらせようと苦労した。
Many families struggle to make ends meet.
多くの家庭が生活費をやりくりするのに苦労している。いのりちゃんは冒頭部分でダブルサルコーにだいぶ苦戦していましたね。まあその後ダブルループを成功させていましたが、こういった違和感にも私は全然気がつきませんでした。やっぱり奥が深い。
Nitpicky.
この単語は細かいミスや些細な点にこだわりすぎる人や態度を表します。あまり重要でない部分を指摘しすぎる人について話すときに使われるスラング的な表現です。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
My boss is so nitpicky about small details in reports.
私の上司は報告書の細かい部分にすごくうるさい。
Stop being so nitpicky and just enjoy the movie.
細かいことばかり気にしないで映画を楽しんでよ。今回の動画ではいろいろと細かな指摘がありましたが、やっぱりそれもそういった知識がない人じゃないとできないことですね。繰り返しになりますが、私は本編を見ている時にそんなところまで一切気が回りませんでした。
Consistently.
この単語は一貫して常に変わらずにという意味を持ち、行動や結果が継続的であることを表します。安定したパフォーマンスや習慣について話すときによく使われます。こちらがその英単語を使った例文です。
She consistently arrives early to work.
彼女は常に仕事に早く到着する。
The team has been performing consistently well this season.
そのチームは今シーズン一貫していい成績を収めている。今回は主にジャンプなどの成功の安定という意味でこの単語が使われていました。私も常に正確な翻訳をしようと心がけていますが、これがまあ難しいんですわ。精進あるのみですね。